Beginning in 1984, the Criterion Collection was the very first video distributor to explore the opportunities that the Laserdisc format could offer, with special features that explored the film that you had just watched with documentaries, video essays, letterboxing, and audio commentaries. I remember going to the Laserdisc store when I was 13 and seeing that place where the Criterion Collection Laserdiscs were stored. Flipping through the titles like Carnal Knowledge, 8½, The Seventh Seal, Vengeance is Mine, Ghostbusters, films that I have heard of and knew that they were great, and some that I hadn't heard of, but also knew that they were great because the Criterion Collection released them. With the advent of DVD and American audiences' thirst for special features, Hollywood studios tightened their distribution rights to Criterion and pretty much halted all American films to be celebrated by the company. So Criterion started to focus more on world cinema, introducing American audiences to great directors like Pier Pasolini, Michelangelo Antonioni, and Jean-Luc Godard, but also celebrating such American directors like Wes Anderson, Noah Baumbach, and Michael Bay. News has surfaced that the major Hollywood studios have loosened their grip on the distribution rights to the Criterion Collection with the release of Stagecoach, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, Downhill Racer, and Make Way for Tomorrow. And Criterion could be coming back to be the premier video distributor of fine American cinema once again. So with that, I'd like to give you my top 10 American films that I would like to see the Criterion Collection release.
Cinderella, 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 Cinderella,
Number 10. AI. What do you get when you have America's most popular director wanting to make a film that was the last idea from one of the world's most prolific directors? You get AI. Yes, I know that it is somewhat of a flawed film and the last 25 minutes should have been cut, but just think of this. Have you ever heard of a film where two of the greatest minds in cinema, whose types of films are completely different from each other, decide to make a film together? Never, right? This was probably the biggest film that wasn't in movie history, and just think about the documentaries about the film's pre-production, people debating about the film's merit in cinema history, and critics discussing the controversial happy ending. Steven Spielberg has always been an advocate of the Criterion Collection during the Laserdisc days, even having like 2 or 3 cuts of his Close Encounters be released by Criterion. And of course, Stanley Kubrick is one of Criterion's darlings with 5 films released on the Criterion Laserdisc, plus Spartacus on Criterion DVD. This one is a no-brainer and really should be a part of the Criterion canon.
Cinderella, 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 Cinderella,
Number 9. Wattstax. I'm sure that you've never heard of this film, and if you have, I'm sure that you're in agreement with me that this is Criterion canon. Let's go into the history. Wattstax is a documentary about the annual Watts Summer Festival in South LA. This one is of utter importance because it was in commemoration of the 7th anniversary of the riots that happened in Watts. It showed that the community rose up after that turmoil and shows a different side of the story from the people who participated in it and their versions of why it happened. It has great musical performances by Isaac Hayes, the Dramatics, the Staple Singers, and narrated by Richard Pryor. Criterion has already released the Monterey Pop Festival and the Rolling Stones' Gimme Shelter, both on DVD and Blu-ray, so why not this piece of American history? This festival goes on every year in Watts, so maybe make a documentary about what it's like now, and possibly a director's commentary by Mel Stewart, who's also the director of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And, if possible, deleted musical numbers. I mean, this DVD would be a hit.
Cinderella, 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 Cinderella,
Number 8. Invaders from Mars. This is just a great little science fiction film from the 50s about alien invaders from Mars.
Just a simple B sci-fi film with special effects from the guy that did the opticals from Gone with the Wind. Plus, this film has such a fascinating history that it begs the Criterion treatment. There were two different cuts of this film, a happier American cut where it was all a dream, and a darker European cut where it was not. Plus, this film is in dire need of restoration. It hasn't been restored since 1993 when it was released on Laserdisc in a super special edition, and that print was reused from the 2002 DVD release by Image Entertainment. Even though it says new digital transfer on the box, don't let that fool you, it's the same print.
Criterion has already released a handful of great B science fiction films like Robinson Crusoe on Mars, First Man into Space, The Haunted Strangler, Carnival of Souls, and the great French horror film Eyes Without a Face. It's not as stuffy as some may think, so an Invaders from Mars would be a great addition to the collection.
Cinderella, 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 Cinderella,
Number 7. Porn.
Okay, hear me out. In the 70s, porn was considered the last frontier of American cinema, and also very chic. The New York Times would often review the latest X-rated pick, like Emmanuel, Deep Throat, Beyond the Green Door, films that had a genuine plot, and besides the cable guy coming to install the cable or the pizza guy delivering pizza. They were considered art, and it wasn't until the advent of videotape when porn was considered what it is today. Films like the aforementioned films are very important in the history of cinema, and I feel that Criterion should celebrate that. Hell, do a special edition of Deep Throat, the most prolific porn film of all time, with the necessary supplements like the great documentary Inside Deep Throat, press clippings from the New York Times and the LA Herald, where they review the film like it's a legitimate film, include trailers, poster art, television news stories about the controversy about the film. Treat it like a sociological study on the puritanical values of American culture, for God's sake. And I know the Criterion doesn't shy away from porn. On DVD, they have released Sweet Movie, which is breaking taboos in the first place. Salo, or 120 Days of Sodom, which is basically a torture scat porn film. Or Urashima's In the Realm of Senses, which is a porn. It has penetration, cum shots, cum swallowing, even a guy who sticks a hard-boiled egg inside of a vagina of a woman and then eats it. Yeah! Release Deep Throat.
Cinderella, 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 Cinderella,
Number 6. Barry Lyndon. I know that I've already talked about Stanley Kubrick with AI, but I feel that this is Kubrick's most beautiful film. I find it as sort of a spoof on all those stuffy masterpiece theater specials on PBS. Just watch this scene.
Barry's father had been bred, like many other young sons of a genteel family, to the profession of the law. And there is no doubt he would have made an eminent figure in his profession, had he not been killed in a duel, which arose over the purchase of some horses.
It's all shot with natural lighting, with Kubrick having special lenses created to capture the images lit by nothing but candles. It's a little over 3 hours long, and some feel that it's quite a slow film, but it has never bothered me with the molasses factor. I feel it's Kubrick's underrated masterpiece and should definitely have a special edition treatment.
Warner Brothers has already done wonderful special editions on Kubrick's The Shining, 2001, A Clockwork Orange, Eyes Wide Shut, and Full Metal Jacket. Definitely his most popular works, and there are rumors that Criterion is preparing special editions of Paths of Glory, The Killing, and Killer's Kiss. Plus, they have released a Laserdisc edition of Lolita. Yet, Barry Lyndon gets no love, and it is a travesty. There is so much more to explore in this film that Criterion must do it justice, and I feel that a studio special edition would just gloss over the main facts and not get into the meat of this monumental film epic.
Cinderella, 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 Cinderella,
Number 5. Gone in 60 Seconds. This is the epitome of an independent feature from the 70s. Self-funded by H.B. Halecki by working on cars to raise funds, this film pulls out all the stops. It's amazing that it ever got made. It's just a 70s drive-in flick which featured a 40-minute car chase at the end. And this was independently made with all those car stunts in downtown Long Beach. Just an amazing film.
I'm going to really dissect this film on a later episode, but Criterion really needs to put out a really good edition of this film. The DVD that's available now does not have the original score to it. It's a brand new score that sounds more like something from an 80s porn film, and it's not as exciting as the original score, which was rock and roll music. Songs like Lois Lane Blues and Gone in 60 Seconds were replaced with Bow Shackle Wow Wow. It's pitiful. Criterion could release such a cool DVD of this too. Hell, they could even do a comparison 2-pack like they did with Floating Weeds and The Killers, with not only the original film, with the original music, but also the travesty released in 2000 with Nicolas Cage and Angelina Jolie, produced by Jerry Bruckheimer. I mean, Criterion did release Armageddon and The Rock.
Cinderella, 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 Cinderella,
Number 4. Little Big Man. There are some that say that Avatar ripped off Dances with Wolves with its Stranger in a Strange Land adopting their culture plotline. Well, Dances with Wolves ripped it off from this film. It's a wonderful story starring Dustin Hoffman as Jack Crabb, a man who claims to be the lone survivor of the Battle of Little Bighorn. A man who saw that battle from both sides, Indians and the white man. It's an entertaining film that was one of the first films of the time to realistically characterize Indians not as the bloodthirsty savages like Hollywood has portrayed them previously.
This is just an important film and an entertaining history lesson rolled into one. Criterion could have a field day with the special features on this one. A documentary on Custard, Little Bighorn, the release and reception of the film at the time. Get Dustin Hoffman and Faye Dunaway to do either a commentary track or new interviews reminiscing about the film, production documentaries, you name it. Just give it the special edition this film deserves.
Cinderella, 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 Cinderella,
Number 3. 200 Motels. Again, I'm going to be dissecting this film more in a later episode, but I just want to point out how much this film needs a special edition and done right. The only available DVD of this is either in bootleg form, which is in the original aspect ratio, mind you, but sourced from the MGM VHS tape, or the official Tony Palmer DVD, which is formatted to fit 16:9 screens. Again, the film was shot in the aspect ratio of 1.33 to 1, which is the normal square screen. And it is edited where a couple of lines are cut. It does have a good commentary track by Tony Palmer, but doesn't suffice when the film is not in its original aspect ratio.
Okay, more boring stuff. This was originally shot on videotape, so the master's not going to have the greatest resolution. However, to have a legal copy of the film in the original aspect ratio would be a godsend. Besides having Frank Zappa and Keith Moon no longer with us, we do have Mark Volan, Howard Kalin, Jimmy Carl Black, and other members of the Mothers of Invention alive, plus Ringo Starr, and would probably love to do an interview about 200 Motels for a new documentary. Plus, there's also the Zappa documentary, The True Story of 200 Motels, sitting in the Zappa Family Trust vault, which could be included as well. There's a wealth of possibilities, being that this is Zappa's second of 4 films. Hell, why not include Uncle Meade as well? I know that the Zappa Family Trust is very protective about their properties, but to have a Criterion edition of your film is such a special honor that I'm sure that they would gladly cooperate. That and there's more royalties.
Cinderella, 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 Cinderella,
Number 2. Head. Yes, head. It's just that important in film history. The creative team that brought you Easy Rider, 5 Easy Pieces, and The King of Marvin Gardens with their first feature film starring the Monkees. I've already gone over how wonderful this film is in previous episodes. But just think of how interesting the special features would be. A commentary track with Bob Rafelson and the Monkees, maybe even Jack Nicholson himself reflecting about the film. A documentary celebrating the film, even a couple of episodes from the Monkees TV show directed by Rafelson, or the Monkees special 33 1/3 Revolutions per Monkey. Promotional films by the Monkees, a documentary on the Monkees stamp on popular culture of the 60s, another sociological study of American culture, and one that would possibly be a huge seller for Criterion.
I briefly talked with Mickey Dolenz about the film about a month ago, and I was just fascinated about how much he loves the film and loves to talk about it. I know that he would be on board to help with the Criterion release. Hell, Criterion, I'll produce the goddamn disc for you guys. Let's just get it out.
Cinderella, 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 Cinderella,
And the number 1 movie is Chatterbox. Yeah, I just like the film. I mean, it's Lucas talking, but with the talking vagina. But it also touches upon the Puritan upbringing that Americans all have in conflict with the rest of the world's sexual appetites. It's a wonderful comedy with great one-liners and B-grade celebrities. Plus, it's also an example of the drive-in films that were shown at the time. These were usually very low budget and had either a lot of gore or a lot of sex and nudity. This is one of Candace Rialston's only films that are not by Roger Corman, and it has never had a DVD release anywhere. Perhaps even a documentary about Candace Rialston's life and career and her story about leaving Hollywood because of being typecast in films like these, even when she had such tremendous talent. Or a documentary showcasing the drive-in culture and the types of films that were released at the time.
Here's the cool thing. I just learned that the Criterion Collection has set out on negotiations with American International Pictures, the company that owns the rights for Chatterbox, for a distribution deal. That means that there's a chance that this could happen. So I want all of you to write, phone, or email Criterion and ask them to release Chatterbox as a Criterion Collection edition. Hopefully they will put it into consideration, and hopefully they will release it. But if more people ask for it, the better the chances of it happening. So that's it. My top 10 films that I want the Criterion Collection to release. Yeah, I know most of these are long shots, but I know that if Criterion starts to put out more important American films, their sales will definitely go up. I'm Zack Scott, and I'll see you on the next Laserdisc Memories.